Hello, I'm Joanna Campbell and this is Sybilla, which recently won the first National Flash Fiction Day Novella-in-Flash Award. It is set in a second-hand bookshop in West Berlin at the height of the Cold War. The main characters are Felix and Lara. Felix runs the bookshop and searches for lost books and treasures in the war debris. And Lara has recently moved to the city from the countryside. The Berlin Wall has just been constructed. And the first story I'm going to read is called New Directions. Lara lives alone on the fourth floor of a house clinging to its fading majesty. Her shoes clip on the tiled floor the way heels patter in films. Only damp holds the time-weakened tapestries to the yellowing walls. The bullet-ridden facade and bomb-damaged cornices uphold a quiet contact with the past. Time still ticks to an old-fashioned rhythm here. Lara is sitting on the window seat with her breakfast of dense dark bread. It tastes of black treacle. The shutters blow open to the old coin clink of linden leaves in the wind. The lowest branches graze the wall, cowering against it, where once they stirred puddles on the pavement. The bread smells like her childhood in the countryside, her mother pummeling caraway dough and her father stoking the kitchen fire. Lara grew up milking cows and mending fences. After the war ended, her mother twisted her hands inside her apron pocket as soldiers unrolled barbed wire through their field. As he led his horse into the diminished enclosure, a tear shone on her father's face. Villages were cut up like cakes. Throughout the farmland, barbed wire quickly established roots, stretching and gripping, tougher than strawberry runners. Fields nurtured from the same seed were now divided. More than half her father's own pasture was out of bounds. His feet were now enemy feet. One pace too many, and his boots stepped into no man's land. One more step meant sudden death. Unity, he said, existed only below ground, where all crops were watered by the same rain, warmed by the same sun. Villages close to the other side were left to crumble. The residents ordered not to repair or rebuild. Eventually, they would be forced to move inwards. For now, Lara's family continued to farm beside the barbed wire barrier. At least they lived on the right side, Lara kept telling them, but her parents never talked about anything but the dissection of their land, never saw anything but the watchtowers, searchlights, and armed guards over there. Lara was feeding the chickens one morning when a man appeared at the barrier, an itinerant labourer who often came to work for her father. He crouched low to crawl beneath the wire, seeing no reason why he couldn't cross into the familiar field. She cried out a warning, but it was too late. The bullets sent the chickens back to their coop, their corn scattering in all directions. Lara grew into an angry, restless teenager. Her father was wary of the new era, of the young seeking release from the past. He had heard how they lived in the city, bohemian communes and the like. But Lara had heard the division was less apparent there, the two parts indistinct. It was its own island, an enclave of freedom. While the countryside was sharply demarcated, the city was fresh watercolours, shining and shifting. Among the glorious buildings and sprawling parks, traffic and crowds, clamour and lights, she'd be free. When she stepped out of the train, a long wait was over. The city was damaged, but unflinching. This was where she belonged. The aftermath of war no longer an open wound. There were no barriers on the day she came. People were still allowed to cross back and forth between its vague halves. There were checkpoints and different currencies, but you could walk wherever you liked. It was lively, yet safe and peaceful. When she wasn't at work, Lara could simply mark time. The rain now falling on the street below her is the same rain that falls on her father's greying head, on his patient cows. It sweetens her pavements as it sweetens his grass. It even washes the bricks of the wall. But the wall has cast a long shadow. Lara walks around it on her way to work, as if the darkened ground is a poisoned lake. Exploring the city on her days off, she tries to avoid it altogether, but it snakes about, confronting her where she least expects it. The other day she turned a corner she used to know well, taking a shortcut to her favourite bakery, but the wall caught her out. The shortcut had gone. Retracing her steps led her nowhere familiar. Then in circles, her sense of the city erased. She went out yesterday with Felix to rescue books from a derelict building, but they kept encountering dead ends. It was unlike Felix to give up on treasure, but they had to turn back. Having lived all his life in the city, he couldn't admit to being lost. Lara tried asking a few passers-by for directions, but no one understood the twists and turns. The rain is easing now. Lara throws crusts out of the window. The crows flap down from the wall to retrieve the bread from the puddles, then fly back up to devour it. It's a useful perch to them. They don't care that it zigs and zags, cutting off beautiful buildings. They don't know it appears at the end of a side street, as if sliding into place, like a cloud across the moon, forcing a change of direction.